They told you masculinity was about dominance, about volume, about force. They were wrong. Real masculinity has always been quieter than that, stronger than that, more dangerous than that. Emotional control is not weakness, it is restraint, and restraint has always been the mark of powerful men. Anyone can react, anyone can explode, anyone can send the message they'll regret 10 minutes later. But very few men can sit with discomfort and do nothing. That is strength. When you lose emotional control, you hand power away. You give your peace to someone else's behavior. You let circumstances decide who you are. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. They knew that the man who controls his emotions controls his destiny, not by suppressing feeling, but by choosing his response. Heartbreak exposes this truth faster than anything else. When she leaves, when she pulls away, when she goes silent, your first instinct is to chase, to explain, to demand clarity. But the man who pauses, the man who breathes, the man who stays grounded, he becomes untouchable. Emotional control doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means pain doesn't dictate your actions. You still feel the loss, you still feel the weight, but you don't let it drag you into chaos. This is where modern masculinity is changing. Women are no longer drawn to loud confidence. They're drawn to emotional stability, to men who don't panic under pressure, who don't collapse when things go wrong, who don't need validation to feel whole. A calm man in a storm is more attractive than a loud man in control, because calm signals safety, and safety signals leadership. When you master emotional control, something shifts. You stop arguing to be understood. You stop chasing closure. You stop trying to prove your worth. Not because you don't care, but because you respect yourself, and self-respect is felt without words. This is why silence becomes powerful, why detachment becomes magnetic, why discipline replaces desperation. You no longer move from emotion, you move from principle, and principle outlives feelings every time. This is the masculinity that lasts, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that commands respect, not the kind that reacts, but the kind that remains steady when others break. If you're rebuilding, if you've been hurt, if you're learning to stand again, understand this. Every moment you choose calm over reaction, you are becoming stronger than the version of you that needed validation. And this is only the beginning. Because once you control your emotions, nothing else controls you. When you begin to develop emotional control, people around you feel it before they understand it. Your presence changes, your reactions slow. Your words become fewer, but heavier. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop defending choices that align with your values. You stop reacting just to be seen. And this is where real masculinity begins to separate itself. Most men confuse emotional control with emotional suppression. They think being stoic means feeling nothing. That's not control, that's avoidance. A stoic man feels everything. He simply refuses to let emotion hijack his behavior. He allows anger to rise and pass. He allows sadness to speak without letting it decide. He allows desire without letting it pull him off his path. This takes practice, because the modern world rewards emotional impulse. It rewards outrage. It rewards immediate reaction. It rewards expression without restraint. But Stoicism asks for the opposite. It asks you to pause when the urge is strongest, to breathe when your instinct says act, to remain composed when chaos would feel justified. This is not passive, it is deliberate, and deliberation is power. When you stop reacting emotionally, something else happens. You begin to see situations clearly. You notice patterns you missed before. You see how often people test boundaries. You recognize when silence is more effective than explanation. You realize that most conflicts escalate not because of disagreement, but because of wounded egos seeking validation. And once you see that, you stop participating. You don't argue to win. You don't explain to convince. You don't chase to feel chosen. You move differently. This shift is uncomfortable at first, because emotional reactions once gave you a sense of control. Anger felt like strength. Chasing felt like effort. Explaining felt like honesty. But over time, you realize those were illusions. Real control is internal. It's the ability to feel pressure and remain steady, to experience loss and not collapse, to be misunderstood and not correct the record. This is why emotional control intimidates people, because they can't read you easily anymore. They can't provoke you the same way. They can't pull you into emotional games. And for the first time, you're not trying to be impressive, you're trying to be aligned. Aligned with your values, aligned with your direction, aligned with the man you're becoming, not the man you were trying to keep alive. This is why emotional control changes attraction, changes respect, changes outcomes. Not because you manipulate, but because you no longer leak your energy outward. You conserve it. And conserved energy becomes presence. Presence becomes authority. Authority becomes influence. This is the quiet chain reaction most men never understand. They chase power externally while giving it away internally. You are learning to reverse that. And as this discipline deepens, a question begins to form. If you are no longer ruled by emotion, what will you choose to build instead?
Emotional control is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming unshaken. The more you master this, the less the world gets to decide who you are. If this message helped you see strength differently, subscribe and stay here. This channel is for men building themselves quietly with discipline and clarity. And ask yourself this: where in your life are you still letting emotion make decisions for you? Sit with that. We'll continue from there.